Hello everyone and welcome to our first session on ReactJS, creating components using properties. In this module, we will learn how to create React components using properties, commonly known as props. We will use an expense entry example to demonstrate how to pass data from a parent component to a child component. Let's begin with the setup and basic structure. First, open your terminal and create a new React application using create React app. You can do this by running the command npx create -react -app expense -manager. Once the project is created, navigate to the project directory with cd expense -manager and open it in your preferred code editor. This will be our starting point for the expense entry application. Now, let's create a new file named expenseentry-item.js in the src bar components folder. In this file, we'll define a class component named expenseentry-item that will receive props and render the expense details. Here's the code for the component. In this code, we import React and create the expense entry item class that extends react.component. The constructor function initializes the component with props. In the render method, we use this.props to access the properties passed to this component and display them accordingly. Next, let's open the index.js file in the src folder. Here, we'll import the expense entry item component and define some expense details. We'll then pass these details as props to the expense entry item component when rendering it. Here is the updated code for index.js. In this code, we import React, React DOM, and the expense entry item component. We define constants for the expense details, name, amount, spend date, and category. These constants are then passed as props to the expense entry item component in the React DOM.render method. This will render the expense entry item with the specified details. Now that we have set up our components, it's time to run the application. Open your terminal, navigate to your project directory if you haven't already, and run npm start. This will start the development server. Open your browser and go to http://localhost:3000 to see the application in action. The expense entry details should be displayed as specified. Instead of passing multiple individual props, we can pass a single JavaScript object as a prop. Let's modify our expense entry item component to accept an item object. Here is the updated code for expenseentry-item.js. In the render method, we returned a div that contains 4 child div elements. Now, we'll change each child div displays to a specific property of the item object passed as a prop to expense entry item. The first div displays the item name by accessing this.props.item.name. The second div shows the amount of accessing this.props.item.amount. The third div displays the spend date by accessing this.props.item.spendDate and converting it to a string using toString function. The fourth div displays the category by accessing this.props.item.category. By passing the entire item object as a prop, we simplify the props management in the component, making the code cleaner and more maintainable. Finally, we export the expense entry item component as the default export, making it available for import in other parts of the application. In this code, we modify the expense entry item component to accept an item object as a prop. The render method is updated to access the properties of the item object through this.props.item. This simplifies passing related data points together as a single object. In index.js, we now define an item object that includes all the expense details. This object is passed as a single prop to the expense entry item component. This approach is useful for managing and passing complex data structures between components. In this hands-on module, we have learned how to create React components using properties or props. We demonstrated how to pass data from a parent component to a child component and how to use JavaScript objects as props. That's all for this session. Thank you.